You to Revel 11. My name is Joni Parsons, and I founded Revel 11 about 8 years ago to bring women together over topics that matter, that are timely, and just make a difference in the world. So today we're talking about how the power of nature can support our health, vitality, and transformation. I've always been fascinated by how local cultures can use herbs and plants for healing, simple remedies that have been passed down through generations. Your vitality and years ago, while I was hiking in Nepal on the Annapurna Sanctuary hike, I came down with a horrible cold on day 3 of a 12-day hike. A group of local women offered me an herbal steam bath with plants that they had gathered nearby. It was unexpected and beautiful, and guess what? It worked. I felt myself starting to heal in a way that I hadn't from all of the things that I had brought in my backpack from the States. And you don't have to go across the world to get these herbal remedies. That experience and others like it opened my eyes to the deep intelligence of the natural world and how much it can teach us about healing. In a world that often feels fast and fragmented, we will discuss how healing can be simple, beautiful, and rooted in the natural rhythms of life. I am thrilled to welcome Rachelle Robinett, and the author of this terrific new book called Naturally, The Herbalist's Guide to Health and Transformation. It truly is a Bible for herbalism. She is an herbalist, educator, and her work has been dedicated to the art and science of natural wellness. Welcome, Rachelle.
Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here. I'm very excited to share so much more about herbalism today and the art of natural healing. We have an exciting class. And
Yeah, and I was thinking before we dive into our workshop today, if the audience would put in the chat, are you currently using herbs in your daily life? Just so we can see who's on today and what you are utilizing now. So somebody said yes.
tell us
Um,
more.
Yes, good. Okay, Brenda and Dale, thank you. And I'd love for you to talk now about herbalism and living in alignment with our nature, not just the nature surrounding us, but I thought this was such an interesting definition. So will you tell us about what you mean by our nature?
Yeah, and I love that question. It's the topic that actually inspired me to begin on the path that ultimately led to herbalism. I'm very fascinated by the human experience and how we relate with ourselves. And when we find that alignment that really feels like we are in our nature, we know what it is. Um, Herbalism is a way of reconnecting with our body and our instincts. There are a lot of things that our bodies know that may not be verbal or conscious. It's also a way of reconnecting with the natural world, of course. We are part of nature. Plants help us remember who we are, not just as individuals, but as part of a collective, part of a system, part of this whole living thing that we find ourselves among. And when we truly tune into that, health can become much more intuitive, much more fluid, much more natural, much more sustainable. And I'll share a quote from the book shortly, but health can then become almost synonymous with that alignment with our true nature.
I love that so much. And that alignment is possible when we incorporate different rituals into our daily life. What would you recommend as we go through this workshop today for people to keep in mind about the little tweaks that they can do and like to start bringing more herbs into their daily ritual?
Definitely. I'll share lots of suggestions as I go along, and some immediately now. But the one thing that I really like to highlight is I always, always, always recommend and also personally practice one change at a time. I find
Good
that to be,
advice.
yeah, highly effective and also realistic. So we can make one change and we stick with that change until it becomes habit, routine, again, natural part of our lifestyle. And then we can add on another and add on another. It's very hard to, change everything all at once or make a drastic shift to a routine. So start simply and aim for consistency. It's much better to make a tiny little change and keep it than to make a big change and not keep it. For example, that could be drinking a cup of herbal tea a day. It could be adding some herbs to your meals. It could be learning a plant that grows locally in the area. One great resource. I know a lot of you are in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, these exist everywhere, but farmers markets, if that's accessible, go to a farmers market and just learn a little bit more about what's local and in season. Explore one tincture at a time, for example. And then, of course, pay attention to how your body feels, how you respond, how it just feels in general to incorporate this change. And again, it's about starting small and sticking with it.
And Rachelle, you've outlined so many of those possibilities in your book. So again, this is just such an incredible resource to begin with and start to look at what you want to incorporate. Today, we are going to do a workshop about all of the categories that are in herbal medicine. And I would love for you, Rachelle, to kind of outline those first, and then we're going to go through them one by one.
Yeah, definitely. So we won't actually cover all of the categories that exist in herbalism because there are many, but we'll cover some of the main categories that,
Great.
of course, I write about in Naturally and that feel most relevant for modern life today. So that includes adaptogens, nervines, nootropics, aphrodisiacs, and bitters. And we'll explain, exactly what all of those are shortly. And I just want to mention, for example, in the book, I also talk about sedatives, herbs for pain relief, herbs for grief and transition, and some other categories. So there are many categories, not hundreds, but they're a really helpful way to understand how to work with the thousands of herbs that are available to us today.
That's that's so great. So I want to talk about adaptogens first, and we're all so stressed out these days in this crazy society that we're living in, and with all these inputs. And so many of us are very emotional and highly on edge all the time. What do you recommend? Help us.
Yes, of course. So adaptogens are the most popular category of herbs right now. They are commonly marketed as herbs for stress. And what they do is not exactly reduce stress, but they reduce the negative effects of stress and they also make us more resilient to stress. So we respond appropriately, we don't overreact, and then we recover quickly, which is really important because a lot of times we get triggered by stress and then we stay in that fight or flight state for a long time, longer than we need or want to. So adaptogenic herbs, by definition, they are normalizing, non-specific, and non-toxic. And what that means is they help our body to reach and maintain normalcy, homeostasis, balance, this ideal state of we are here. They're not stimulants, they're not sedatives, they help us to be our best normal. Non-specific means they're generalists. They work holistically in the body and they can do different things for different people depending on the need. So, for example, ashwagandha, one of the best known adaptogens, helps to normalize cortisol levels. So it's not always just lowering cortisol levels. It's not necessarily raising cortisol levels. It's helping to normalize those. So if yours are high, it's going to help bring it down. If yours are low, it's going to help bring it up. So I like to compare them a little bit to a thermostat, actually. They take check the sense of the body and say this needs to go this way to this way to this way to reach this homeostasis. They work through the HPA axis in the brain. That's the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, and adrenal is probably the key word there. So
Yeah,
you're stressed out.
because aren't, as far as our adrenals, aren't they just highly taxed right now, like when we are stressed? And
Yes.
this will help us get through that anxiety point and just kind of like peace out.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the thing about adaptogens, so we'll talk about another category next that works well with them, but the thing about adaptogens is they're really, really excellent herbs to use every day long term for foundational stress support. They don't work on the spot to give you that quick like come down if you're feeling anxious, but over time they help strengthen our system so that we feel less anxious less often. They're really, really nice herbs to, again, just keep in your routine if you feel highly stressed or, I use them like I might take a break from the adaptogens in the summer if I'm like, not this summer, but other summers, if my schedule is less busy, I might take a break from them, but I will definitely keep them in my routine, like September through June, when things are really, really on. Some examples of adaptogens include Panax ginseng, American ginseng, eleuthero, schisandra, reishi mushroom, ashwagandha, like I mentioned, rhodiola. And the key point, a key point here is, we see adaptogens as a term all over the place now. It's on food and beverage and skincare products. I've seen it on shampoo, all sorts of things. There are only about a dozen herbs, many of which I just mentioned, that are actually adaptogens. And what's happened lately is that companies and brands that aren't familiar with herbalism use the term adaptogen to mean herb. And herb is thousands of ingredients in the natural world that we use for medicine, but adaptogens is a small category that functions in this specific way. So I think that's important to understand because if we want an adaptogen, we want that, benefit that I just mentioned from it. And if that's not in the, sparkling water we bought that has adaptogens in it, then we won't get that benefit. So does that make sense?
Mhm. Yes, definitely. It makes me realize how much more research we need to do on everything that we purchase these days.
Always a
And
good
so
idea.
let's talk a little bit more about calming the nervous system. And how do we begin to just take a step down and calm that nervous system that is so highly targeted these days?
Yeah, definitely. Well, there are many, many things we can do to calm our nervous system. I'm like, can we all just take a like collective breath right now too? I feel
Can
like
we just do that? Why don't
yeah.
you lead us through a breath with like two breaths?
We'll do we'll do four in and we'll hold for three and we'll do four out, like a modified box breath. So
Great.
in, hold, out. In, hold, out. Nice.
Better already. Feel that calm.
So nervine herbs, which are herbs specific for the nervous system, have the effect of what we just did. So, I mentioned that adaptogens are non-specific. They're generalists in the body. Nervines are specific. Nervines work on the nervous system. They help to create peace and calm, to slow the function of the nervous system down, to release neurotransmitters that are calming, like GABA. And they also help with physical nerve health. So you can use nervines if there's any damage to nerves from any sort of incident or that kind of thing. The nervines range from sort of sedative, heavier nervines to nervines that can be used during the day for peace and calm without sedation. So there's a variety there for us to choose from. For example, chamomile, lavender, rose, lemon balm are some really nice ones over here that'll provide calm during the day, but won't necessarily put us to sleep. That said, they can be used before bed if we want to have additional assistance for sleep. But if we have really severe anxiety, we're prone to panic attacks, or we need some help sleeping, we can use heavier, more sedative nervines like California poppy, hops, valerian, for example. So those are all nervines. These will take us down quicker and more intensely. Passion flower is another really beautiful nervine that is known to help with recursive thoughts. Some of the other benefits of chamomile include any sort of nervous digestion or stomach issues. If you have a nervous, nervous tummy. Motherwort has the added benefits of being great for the heart. Lavender has the added benefits of also being a nootropic, which we'll talk about next. So the nice thing about nervines is that, like I mentioned with adaptogens, these are our, long-term foundational support. But if we want something to work right in the moment, we need a quick dose of relaxation, we can use the nervines for on the spot relief. That said, we can and should also use them long. I mean, most herbs are best if we use them long term. The more often we use these, the more support we're giving our nervous system. We can rehabilitate the nervous system from burnout or, excess stress or a propensity to be anxious. And over time, again, that builds our resilience. It can help us just be stabler and steadier in general. But yeah, think about them as more of an acute remedy in addition to the, option for long term. Whereas adaptogens, we're not going to take ashwagandha in the moment and feel it right away.
So Rochelle, I just planted about 44 lavender plants. And and so just the benefits, if people have lavender growing in their garden, what would you recommend? I'm somebody I know is very curious about that.
Oh, wow. I mean, lavender is one of the most versatile plants, and it's one of the most effective, and I find, at least in some circles, kind of underrated herbs. Lavender, I mean, you can use lavender in your food. You can bake with it, you can brew it in teas, you can dry it and put it in little, sachets and keep that on your pillow or in your car or in your purse or whatever you like. It's beautiful as a tincture as well. I mean, I don't think we don't really need lavender in tincture form because it's so effective in the easier to sort of, create forms like the tea or the essential oil. Um, I mean, essential oil is not easy to create, but it's like, all you have to do is smell it to consume it.
Yeah.
You could bathe with lavender. That would be beautiful. And just on the note of essential oils and highly aromatic plants like lavender and other plants in the mint family, when we smell them, when we crush and we smell that oil, that is ultimately entering our bloodstream through the olfactory system in the same way as if we had consumed the tea. If we put the oil on our skin, that's also eventually getting into our bloodstream. So just smelling it is actually consuming it, and that's one of the reasons why a plant like lavender is so easy to work with, because you can literally just
Immediate benefits. So thank you for that. And switching gears, many women of all of us in our 40s and beyond are going through some type of menopause, and which means that we have a lack of focus. So many of us, including myself, have had memory issues through the menopausal journey. And I would love for you to talk about how we can enhance our focus through herbs.
Definitely. So there's one category in particular for this, but of course I also want to give an honorable mention to herbs that work on hormone balance, because there are many that do that. So we always have the option of using herbs in combination with other therapies if we want to help balance hormones. But for memory, focus, and concentration, we use a category of herbs called nootropics. And nootropics, by definition, do that. They enhance our cognitive performance. Some of them also support motivation, but primarily they're about clarity, working memory, focus, sharpness, alertness, but without the stimulation that we get from what we most often use for that effect, which is caffeine. So these herbs can give you all of those benefits and many, many more, but we don't have to deal with caffeine or worry about having that late in the day or having too much of it in our lives. Um, for example, some of them will increase blood flow to the brain. Some of them will reduce inflammation in the brain. My favorite herb for reducing inflammation in the brain is turmeric. This is also one of my top 5 herbs just for life. And one of the neat side effects of that is reducing inflammation in the brain has been shown to improve anxiety, depression, and other mental health imbalances, in addition to focus and concentration. They will help regulate the levels of certain neurotransmitters that we need for optimal brain function. They'll protect against oxidative damage, enhance the growth of neurons. So, I mean, incredible functions. Some
So many
examples,
benefits.
yes. So, and some examples, I mean, one actually I keep on my desk in essential oil form, and that's rosemary. Well, okay, it was in my filing cabinet, but it's close to my desk. I keep a rosemary essential oil on my desk for this, exact reason. Rosemary for remembrance. Rosemary is very easy to work with as well. There are actually studies on just drinking 1 cup of rosemary tea and seeing these incredible benefits for the brain, but also for longevity, which is amazing. Um, the herb, there are many, but like the primary herb that we use for supporting focus is bacopa. It's also
And what
known.
is that?
It's like a succulent plant. It's used, it was originally used in Ayurveda.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and it's commonly found in powder form, in capsules. I don't see it too often in tinctures. I would not recommend trying it as a tea. It is the most bitter tea I have ever had, more bitter than mugwort, wormwood, really intense, like nauseatingly bitter. So no Bacopa tea unless you like, unless that sounds fun.
I
Um,
think we'll just say no to that.
yeah, but Bacopa can be used with kids. So really great for treating any kind of ADHD like symptoms, essentially trouble focusing.
That's
Um,
fantastic.
I also love mucuna pruriens. This is colloquially known as dopamine bean, supports levels of dopamine in the brain. That's very important for motivation and any kind of flow state related focus. This is also used for treating Parkinson's disease because it's high in L-DOPA, which is used for the same reason. Lion's mane mushroom is another beautiful one. That one helps support and regenerate nerves. So it's functioning a bit like a nervine in that sense as well. Very good for focus. I actually just received a really beautiful lion's mane tincture, which reminds me that if we're and the Pacific Northwest has incredible mushroom products and people who know how to work with those with mushrooms. One thing to just be aware of with mushroom tinctures is that it's generally ideal if they're dual extracted, which means it's extracted in alcohol and water or glycerin, and then combined in the final product. And that's because mushrooms
Okay.
have active compounds that are extractable in both.
So,
Um, yeah,
you mentioned that you have a top 5 list of herbs, including turmeric. What are the other 4? Just capture this while we're right there.
definitely. Okay, let's see. So turmeric is one for sure. I highly recommend milk thistle. Milk thistle is a liver supportive herb, helps improve liver function and liver regeneration. But I recommend that not only because we're constantly, we're in a somewhat toxic world. We're exposed to things all the time. Liver support is ideal even if you don't drink alcohol, but more so for many, many people, the liver function is critical for hormone balance, and that includes sex, stress, and sleep hormones. So that pretty much includes everyone and our liver functioning optimally to help remove, or help balance our hormones is really important. Let's see. I mean, it's not technically an herb, but an ingredient that is in my top five is fiber. It's
Mhm.
boring, but it's highly effective for so many conditions that people are struggling with today. Detoxification, blood sugar balance, which levels up into focus and concentration issues, mood imbalances, hormone imbalances, skin issues, weight management, all sorts of things. Gut health and the benefits of gut health are, innumerable.
Huge.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely huge.
let's see. So we have those. Any kind of greens, again, so this can be an herb like nettle, which I grew
Mhm.
up with in the Pacific Northwest, nettle.
Yes.
It could also be spirulina. It could be the greens of your choice, but we pretty much all need more greens. So there's that. And then the fifth herb will vary for everyone, but for me, the herb is kava. And kava
Mhm.
is, I think we'll talk about it probably next. Yes, next.
Yes.
Kava is my favorite alternative to alcohol. So I don't really drink alcohol, but I love to have something that I can feel, that I can relax with at the end of the day. Also something that works for pain or sleep or just general calm. And I am never out of stock of kava, and I travel with it in tincture form. So I think that was five.
Fabulous. Okay, we captured that right there, and which leads really nicely into let's talk about aphrodisiacs.
Mhm. So aphrodisiacs obviously cultivate, enhance, support pleasure. The thing about the term aphrodisiac is that it doesn't have to apply to an herb. An aphrodisiac can be a food, it could be a scent, it could be a sight, it could be a sensation. So anything that enhances our pleasure can be considered an aphrodisiac. Now, that said, of course, there are some classics, and there are some classics in herbalism that help specifically with pleasure support. For example, Damiana. Damiana is a really beautiful herb that's been used to lift the mood, like gently, mildly. It's not a stimulant. Um, Enhance circulation in the body, kind of warm things up, if you will, and also enhance like sensual pleasures or sort of physical pleasures. It's also really helpful if we find that our libido or our desire is dampened by emotional fatigue or stress. Just kind of like calming things down and enhancing our ability to like enjoy pleasurable experiences. Cacao is classic. So raw cacao, or, it doesn't have to be raw, but cacao. This ingredient, it's, a tree, of course, that has these really neat pods, and, extract the beans and we make chocolate and all sorts of things. But cacao also contains an active ingredient that prevents the breakdown of anandamide, and anandamide has been called our bliss molecule. Um,
Mm,
so it helps to, it's just like kind of a blissful herb. Also, many people have, pleasurable kind of connotations, or cacao has a pleasurable connotation that comes along with it, chocolate and romance and these things.
I like the idea of a blissful herb and having something around that every day.
Yes, me too. Actually, I'm going to make cacao this afternoon when I relax after this class. It's this beautiful cacao that I got from some indigenous people who work with cacao in Costa Rica up in the hills. And it's just pure cacao, and you mix it with water. You can have it hot or cold. It's such a medicine. It's such a beautiful example of herbalism being both pleasurable and medicinal.
I love that so much. And so, we want to talk more about nutrition and lifestyle. You had mentioned already some things that, like eating more greens and having more fiber. But what are some things that we can do to balance nutrition and lifestyle to make ourselves more vital in the everyday. And one thing that I love that you say is that when you are increasing herbs in your body and that you're becoming more vital, you also become more true to yourself. Can you explain that? And then let's dive into some lifestyle changes that we can all make.
Definitely. I'll do that. And then if you like, after the nutrition and lifestyle, I can talk a little bit about bitters, the herbs for
I
gut
love
health.
that.
That could be like a nice
Yes,
tie in there.
that would be
Um,
great.
so for nutrition and lifestyle, you know, yes, herbalism is plants as medicine. However, any herbalist will always start with your diet and your lifestyle, with these pillars of health that have not changed: our nutrition, how much we move every day, how we're sleeping, what our community is like, what is our relationship with our true nature, what is our relationship with nature. So these foundations, these pillars are what I, and again, any herbalist is going to recommend everyone start with and get those as dialed as possible. Because when we do that, many symptoms that we're otherwise looking to treat will either lessen or be eliminated. We're left with less to treat then with herbs as medicine. And this again is the foundation that, as we've seen in blue zones around the world, for example, that leads to the greatest degree of happiness and health and the longest lives. So that includes a plant forward, doesn't have to be vegan, but a, plant-based, largely plant-based diet, as much whole food as possible, as little processed food as possible. High fiber, such a key, like 30 grams a day minimum. This supports everything. Um,
It does.
it really does. And it allows the herbs to work better. So you're getting more out of your herbs than when you're using them on top of these foundations. Prioritizing sleep, of course, regular exercise. Regular exercise is, it's my favorite medicine. I use it to treat pain. I use it to treat low mood. I use it to enhance my focus and concentration. I use it for better sleep. It's really, really effective. And I write in Naturally about how effective movement is and how underutilized it is. And it's free. If we have the time, all we have to do is walk, even just starting by sitting outside, but movement is a really powerful medicine.
And
Um,
may I just add to that? I think it's also a choice that we make every day. And, to give ourselves that choice to go and move, there's just no other better benefit than to move your body. And, it's something that I've created in my daily ritual. I walk Green Lake, or, I have two dogs, so that's really good excuse, but I don't need an excuse just to get outside and smell the fresh air and really revel in nature that is surrounding you. Or, if they're buildings, that's another thing too, but just get outside, right?
yeah. Yeah, I walk in the buildings every
That's
day.
why I said that, because
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
you're in Brooklyn in New York, so.
You know what? But there are some trees around, and there's the natural light, and there's the breeze, and there's the shift of focus from the screens to this broader environment. And every system we've talked about today is highly benefited by even just a walk. It's really true. And so on that note, like creating a certain degree of mindfulness around how much we're consuming certain foods or screens or whatever our kind of modern drug of choice is, that minimizing some of those distractions, reducing some of the inputs when possible, allows us to reflect inward, reconnect, hear ourselves, feel our bodies, and again, kind of get closer and cultivate a relationship with that true nature that we keep talking about. And these foundational points, just like incorporating herbalism, work best generally when they're done one small step at a time.
Yeah, going back to your first
10-minute
point,
walk.
just
Yeah.
take on bite-sized pieces, because if you try to add in too much, it just will fall apart like those New Year's resolutions do every year. So
Yes.
so I wanted to step back, because one thing you said that's so important is gut health.
Mhm.
Really, we are just now beginning to realize the importance of gut health that stems to everything else in our body, and things that most of us would be surprised about. So can you talk about the importance of taking care of our gut, and some things that we can do with herbs that will help us digest better and just have an overall better system?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so bitters, so they're in herbalism, this category of herbs is referred to as bitters because they are bitter. We also have carminatives, and I'll explain the difference between the two in this section. So bitters, which can be herbs, but they can also be bitter food, like chicories or arugula. In herbalism, you see like dandelion root, burdock root, literally anything that's bitter. The wormwood and the mugwort we talked about before. Gentian is the most bitter probably. Um, Anything that's bitter, when we taste it, the bitter receptors signal to our digestive system that we're about to consume, food or drink, and our digestive processes get kind of warmed up. So we start secreting the gastric acid and the gastric juices and the, digestive enzymes and those sorts of things, so that when we receive our food, we're better able to digest it, absorb it. And then bitters also have kind of a down and out action in the body. They tend to stimulate the liver function, kidneys, lymph, depending on the herb. And it's helping everything just kind of, digest, absorb, and keep moving on through. So they are excellent for supporting our body's natural digestive processes. Many herbs do that. They actually enhance our body to, enhance our body's ability to do what it knows how to do best. And then carminative herbs help to relax the muscles in the intestine typically, so that if there's gas, bloating, cramping, or anything like that, that system can relax. And again, everything can kind of move through and improve, our motility and our comfort. I mentioned a couple of bitters already. We have gentian, dandelion, burdock. Those are all roots. Chicory root, artichoke leaf, arugula, the others that I mentioned. And with bitters, to take them, you really want to taste them. So we have bitter receptors in our mouths. We have bitter receptors in our lungs. We have bitter receptors in our genitals. We have bitter receptors all over our bodies, which makes bitters a very fascinating category of herbs. Um, but you want to taste them. So, for example, I have like a spray, like it's a tincture, but it's in spray form, so I can spray it and taste it. Tinctures tend to be the easiest. You could do teas, but then you have to drink like the whole bitter tea, and a lot of times that's too much for people. So I like bitters either in food form or as a tincture that you can taste, or like a spray.
I was going to ask you about food form, because I eat so much chicory and dandelion. I'm just trying to get as much as I possibly can into like all of our salads, just from
Amazing.
parsley to, yeah, just throw it in there, and some, yeah,
So
arugula,
good.
every type of green I can possibly get. Boom.
Yeah, I
Um,
love it.
yeah. So a question from Kathy. Can you discuss herbs for pain?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a whole chapter on herbs for pain in the book and naturally. These are referred to as analgesics. Thank you. And analgesics work to reduce sensations of pain. I really explore the topic of pain from a lot of different angles because pain is a fascinating experience in the human body. And sometimes, there's injury and no pain. Sometimes there's no injury and there's pain. And of course, pain travels, along a lot of different pathways in the body, often the nervous system. But there are herbs that help to, again, treat it from a lot of different angles, reducing inflammation, reducing like the perceptions of pain, kind of numbing the pain. And some examples of analgesic herbs include willow bark. It's actually functions essentially similar to aspirin. There's also cayenne, which is one of the ones that sort of numbs the pain. That can be used topically as long as you don't have any open like abrasions or that sort of thing. Another really powerful combination is Jamaica dogwood and corydalis, and you get pain reduction and some muscle relaxation effects. And then, of course, cannabis is popular for pain relief, and I talk about that in that chapter as well, along with some other herbs. I use kava for pain as well. Kava relaxes muscles too. So yeah, those are some examples and some herbs. Yeah.
So one of the things that I love about Rachel's book is not only does she go through each of the various topics that we discussed today, but she also has an herb shopping guide. So as you were talking, it made me think like, okay, here I am in Seattle. Where would I go to go, shop for many of the things that you've discussed? And I know a lot of the co-ops and like Whole Foods have some, but there's many herbalists all over the country that you would recommend. Are there other places that you would recommend as well?
Yeah, I think the best place to shop for bulk, sort of, well, it doesn't have to be bulk, but like loose herbs in raw form online is Mountain Rose Herbs.
Okay,
Mountain
Mountain
Rose Herbs,
Rose. Okay.
fantastic. And they work with small farms to make sure they're getting the highest quality of each type of herb, and then they sell it all in one place. And that's what can be so challenging about buying herbs in that form is that we can't go to one farm or we can't go to one supplier and get the highest quality of everything, but Mountain Rose Herbs does that. There's another one that I really like that used to be called Monterey. Let me just look it up really quickly because it's also great. Used to be Monterey Bay Herb Company, but they've rebranded as herbco.com. Yeah, they still have the
Herbco.com.
Monterey Bay,
Oh,
but
that's easy.
yeah,
Herbco.com. And
they
Ruth,
have,
if you,
yeah, and they have really beautiful, they might only sell in larger quantities, but I've been, every time those herbs show up, I'm just like, the color of this rose is incredible. The green in this skull cap is incredible. And color is often a really nice way to identify how much of the kind of life and the active compounds and the medicine are still in the plants when they're dried.
she also goes into how to shop for quality and considerations like, these are new words to a lot of people, certainly not organic, but biodynamic, regenerative, some of the things that I work with a lot in my other business, fair trade, Fair for Life, and Rainforest Alliance and B Corps. But then you go into recipes, so there's more to this book. And do you have a couple of favorites in your book that you'd like to talk about? Like I was really taken by, this dynamic balance adaptogenic date shake. So yum, I want to try that as soon as possible.
You have favorites. I love the mocktail recipe. Like
Yeah,
that
there's
is
some good recipes in here.
yeah, it's an herbal
There's
lambrusco.
It says spice sparkling mocktail for digestion. Is that the one you were talking about?
That's a different one. There's an herbal lambrusco that is
Mhm.
it's a really cool recipe, really beautiful and very good for the summer. So when everyone has the book, like that is the summer recipe. Hibiscus is really nice when we're overheated and we want something cold. There's a ginger shot recipe in there that I love, very simple, but I mean, I'm not a, chef and I cook I mean, 99% of my own food I prepare myself, but I don't cook for pleasure. So I really relate with people who are like, I can't with the recipes, I can't with the like kitchen stuff like that, I'm like, I get you, that's not me either, but it doesn't have to be you for you to still be preparing your own food or herbs or that sort of thing. So some of the recipes in there are very simple and all of them are meant to be customized or personalized as you please.
That's fantastic. So any closing thoughts, Rachelle?
Any closing thoughts? I mean, I think before I do final closing thoughts, I would love to read this quote that actually, came to mind in the beginning when we were talking about true nature. Um, I'll just read it instead of
Yeah, that'd be
talking
great.
about it. I've found that those who seek to improve their health are often driven by the underlying desire to connect with their truest nature. Our health is one reflection of that nature, and it also serves as the medium through which we live our lives. The better our health, the more fully we can be ourselves.
Look at, I have this that resonated with me so much. And it's so beautiful. And I'm so glad we're closing with that because, it kind of, I sat here when I read that and it's so real. And it took me back that we have the power to have this transformative part of our life. And I want to thank you for all that you've shared today and in your book. It's just such a gift to the world. Um, that you have some answers here, and there are people who are herbalists who are out there who can help you if you have issues with pain or digestion or all of the different things that we talked about today. Thank you for your introduction, Rachelle, and your knowledge and all that you are sharing with us. We appreciate you so much, and best of luck with your book. I know it's going to be a tremendous success.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, and that was moving. Thank you.
And for everyone else, please join us on other Revel 11 events upcoming. And you can go to revel11.com and have a beautiful rest of the day. And I hope to see you either in person or here in Seattle or online soon. Take care, everyone. Happy summer.